Hi everyone, this is Professor Rad, and today we're going to look at frequency distributions. So, of the descriptive statistics we've discussed so far, we've talked about how data has been collected with different sampling types. Now let's look at how you can summarize that data or you can present that data to help convey some information. So the first way of visualizing data we're going to discuss is called frequency distributions. And so let's fill in that definition. So a frequency distribution shows how the frequency is distributed of the data. So what does that mean? So frequency means how often something happens. So we're going to see how often each value occurs in the data set. That's what we're looking for in a frequency distribution. So I have an example here, and I'm going to work through this example in two ways. Both techniques are correct. It just depends on your personal preference, how you prefer to do this, and what seems to come more naturally to you. For me, I tend to like one technique if my data is words, like on this example, and I prefer the other technique when the data is numerical. So I kind of flip-flop between these two techniques, depending on that, as well as depending how much data there is and honestly what kind of mood I'm in. So let's go ahead and work through creating a frequency distribution for this example. So the example says 30 students were asked whether they lived on campus, lived with their parents, rented an apartment, owned their own home, or had some other living arrangement. And the results of the survey are presented in this list over here, and we're going to create the frequency distribution. So in your frequency distribution, each of the categories has been listed. So we have whether they lived on campus with their parents, if they rented, if they owned their own place, or if they had some other living arrangement. And we want to see how many times each of those categories came up in the survey. So that's what we're going to be doing. So one way to go through this is to just go through the list and kind of create tally marks on the outside of your frequency distribution. This is like scratch work, so you could use a pencil to do this, or scrap paper, or off on the side. I do not put the tally marks in these boxes, just keep it outside. So here we have the first word is campus. So I'm going to put a little line next to campus. And then I have parents. So I put a little line next to parents. Own. Then I have two more parents. And I'm just going to keep going through this list. Campus rent parents. Campus rent parents. And putting little tally marks as I go through. So parents and campus, I have 1, 2, 3 parents in a row. So 1, 2, 3, 2 campuses, own, and 2 more parents, 2 more parents, and other, 2 campuses, 2 rents, 2 parents, and then another rent. Okay, so once I have all of those tallies made, I count up how many they were, and I write that number in the frequency. So 7 campus, 10, 15 parents, 4 rent, 3 own, and 1 other. And something I like to do kind of as a quick check when I'm done to make sure I didn't like undercount or overcount is I add all of these up. And since we surveyed 30 students, when I add these all up, I should get 30. So let's see, 7 and 3 is 10. 4 and 1 is 5, plus 15 is 20. So 20 and 10 gives us that 30. So that's kind of a good check to make sure that I didn't undercount or overcount. It doesn't help me know if I put somebody in the wrong category accidentally, but it at least helps me know, I don't have too many or too few. Okay, so now we're going to rewind, and I'm going to show you the other way I could go through and create my frequency distribution. So this other way would simply be to go through my list of data and count up how many times each type happens. So we'll do this as a check for this problem. So my first category is campus. So I'm going to go through and count how many times camp has happened. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, it looks like. And that's what we got. Then for parents, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And that's what we had, was 15. I'm going to use something different for renting. So for rent, I'm going to put a little square next to it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we had 4 renting. For own, 1, 2, 3, 3 own. And then for other, just the 1. So just 1 for other. So that's another way that you can go through your list and come up with the frequencies. So you can just kind of look for the housing type each time. And like I said, I personally find pros and cons in different situations. In this one, it probably would be easier just to do that second technique that I used because it was just kind of easier for me to read through and count them. And especially if you cross them out each time, it makes it a shorter list to look through. So not only will we make frequency distributions, but we will also read from frequency distributions. So let's look at an example of that. So this one says an SRS, remember that's a simple random sample, of 18 to 24-year-olds were asked how many hours they spent reading for fun each week. So how many hours do you spend just reading for fun every week? And we have the results here in this frequency distribution. So we're going to answer these questions. So part A says identify the sample size. The sample size is how many students were surveyed. And they didn't tell us. They just told us that they were between the ages of 18 and 24. In this last example, they told us they looked at 30 students, and we used that as a check to make sure we didn't under or over count. So what we used as a check here is what we're going to use as our way of finding the answer here. So 7 people said they read for 0 hours each week. 4 people read for 1 hour, and so on. So if I want to know how many people total were surveyed, I can add all the frequencies together. Now, usually I'll use a calculator to do this, so I don't have much work to show. So what I like to do as showing my work is I put a little plus here, and that's going to indicate to me that I added all these up. So we've got 7 and 4 is 11, 16, 19, 21, 23, 24, 25. So our sample size is 25 people. Now, this next one says, how many people don't spend any time reading for fun? So I have to make sure I understand what that means. So don't spend any time. That means that there are 0 hours that they read. So for 0 hours, there were 7 people. So 7 people. And actually, why don't I leave a little note to myself? That was for part B, and that's for part A. Now for part C, how many people spend more than 3 hours a week reading for fun? So here's my hours, and I want to know how many people spend 3 hours or more. So I'm going to be looking at this whole group of people here for part C. So I'm going to be adding up all of these frequencies together. So 9, it looks like. All right, so 9 people spend, oh, actually, I looked at 3 or more, didn't I? And I want just more than. So I don't want that category for 3. Ooh, that was my bad for not reading carefully, y'all. So let's redo that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people. There we go. So there were 6 people who spend more than 3 hours. I don't want to include those who spend actually 3 hours. See, look at that. I'm human. I make mistakes too. All right, so that's going to be it for this video on frequency distributions. In the next video, we are going to start to visualize that data using a bar graph. So I'm looking forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, have a wonderful day.